Hello and welcome to a brand new podcast. I'm your host Shruti Sharma, and today's conversation is about something that is becoming more important with every passing day. Yes, cybersecurity. As businesses become more digital, the risks are no longer just technical, they are strategic. From data protection to AI security, organizations today are navigating a much more complex threat landscape. To help us understand this better, we're joined in by Nikhil Raj Singh. He's the Chief Strategy Officer at the Ampcus Cyber. Nikhil brings over 12 years of experience in cybersecurity, also having led more than 500 audits and assessments across global standards like PCI, DSS, ISO 27001, and NIST frameworks. He's worked with organizations across banking, e-commerce, telecom, and critical infrastructure, helping them move from basic compliance to building a real cyber resilience. At Ampcus Cyber, he's focused on aligning cybersecurity strategy with business goals while also leading the initiatives in the AI security, governance, and risk agreement. Nikhil, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Shruti.
Okay, so the cybersecurity landscape is evolving at a very fast pace. So as per your perspective, if you want to know, what are the regularity, priorities and regularities shift that is taking place, and the company should take care of and keep in mind?
So if you ask me with regards to India, right, we are at a very exciting inflection point with regards to the changes that are happening in the cybersecurity landscape of the country. We have essentially moving from the IT Act era, which was essentially built for the smartphone or even pre-smartphone world, to moving towards governing artificial intelligence, right, with India AI mission coming into the scene. With that being said, it's very commendable the way India is taking these steps very decisively, right? With the first regulation and the massive change that happened recently was the DPDP Act, right? Our very own Data Privacy Act, right? And of course, it's been inspired from the data privacy principles across the globe, but it is an act that is specifically built for the Indian market, right? Considering how we consume data and considering how we share data across with different type of organizations, that act would definitely define how India takes data privacy ahead. Then on the operational side, we have many entities, right? Computer Emergency Response Team of India, CERT-In, they are doing great job, right? They've, I think, investigated 30 lakh incidents in 2025, right? And they're continuously sharing warnings and advisories to companies to follow so that they can, keep up with the pace of whatever is happening around the cybersecurity landscape. So from a country standpoint, we are doing pretty well, right? It's the organizations that they will have to essentially now look into all of these regulatory frameworks that are coming in, right? So the compliance or the space with regards to compliance and regulation is changing very fast. So the organizations will have to probably invest in the right set of technology. They'll have to invest in the right set of people to make sure that they are also keeping pace with all of these changes that are coming from the regulatory bodies across the globe and in particularly in the India.
Cool. Okay. Looking at the bigger picture now, what's the vision for the Ampcus Cyber in terms of India and also at the global level, because that's also something which is very important?
See, from a long-term vision standpoint, we are pretty much clear that we want to be the cybersecurity partner for any of the organization or any of the enterprise which is trying to navigate through complex regulatory environment and they need help. And essentially, if they're operating in a fast-paced digital economy, which is, let's say, countries like India, Philippines, right? All of these are fast-moving digital economies. You have companies coming up in these regions massively, right? They're scaling up in a matter of months, right? And they need a lot of support when it comes to cybersecurity. We want to be that partner, right? And India is the market for that, right? Because in India, we've got a lot of organizations which are already essentially building on to existing cybersecurity programs. We have got a skill set here, right? So we are delivering services through one of our largest center in Bangalore, right? So we've got the talent which has the cybersecurity skill set, and they are providing services across the globe. So we are using India as a market to generate us revenue, and then also using the Indian talent to go ahead and provide these services to other global countries as well. Right. So that's one vision which we really want to take up. The other vision is ensuring that our footprint across the global market expands. Right now, we are close to, I think, working close to 25 odd countries. I mean, we have our operating offices in all of those countries, but we want to expand onto that footprint as well, right? And specifically in the countries like UAE, Middle East, right? I mean, UAE, Qatar, Bahrain, all of those countries where they have specific cyber security discussions, right? GCC has got Vision 2030, right? Then Southeast Asia has a lot of countries which are very fast moving from a digital economies standpoint. One of the example is Philippines, and we have recently opened up a massive 100-seater office in Philippines because we know that there is a need for these organizations to have partner like Ampcus Cyber to come in and help them with cyber security piece. So these are, I think, two areas is where we are probably putting a lot of money. We are putting a lot of effort also in making sure that we hit the right channels to generate the revenue and provide decent quality of services to all of these enterprises and making sure that they are operating securely.
So, Nikhil, when we talk about cyber security resilience, that is upmost for any businesses these days and very critical for that matter. So, if you talk about Ampcus Cyber, what are the key pointers, if you could say, that you'll be doing for these businesses so that the resilience is strengthened and they can fight against the evolving threats that they have in the cyber security?
So in Ampcus Cyber, our philosophy with regards to cyber resilience is that we consider cyber resilience as a continuous process and not a one-time project for any organization. It's kind of a capability that you build rather than a product or a service that you get.
Okay.
Right. So that's the idea under which the entire Hexa defense model that I spoke about is being built, right? So in the Hexa defense model, what we have got is compliance is one piece, which is where we help you navigate all the sort of compliances, regulatory requirements, frameworks, so that you have a baseline to follow from a cybersecurity standpoint, right? Now, there have been times where all these compliance assessments have already been, have always been the point in time assessment, right? So the auditor comes in, they come in, they audit you, they give you certification, and then it's done and dusted. That time is gone. The compliance that now organization needs to follow needs to be a continuous compliance, right? Instead of looking at point in time assessment, it has to be continuous compliance. The other piece is governance, right? So things like providing virtual CISO as a service, providing third-party risk management services, providing risk assessment services to our customers so that they can understand what they have to do to make sure that their programs are functional on the ground, right? So once they have the controls deployed, they want some sort of a governance framework built on top of the entire thing so that they can run the operations pretty smoothly. So governance engine of the vertical that I'm talking about of the Hexa defense model caters to that particular piece. Then all of this is all controls, governance, which means I'm doing everything right from an organization standpoint. But you need something to test whether you're actually doing it right. That's the true resilience if you talk about that, right? So for that, what we have done is we have got something called as threat and vulnerability radar, which is an offensive security practice, right? So you can think of it like an attacker trying to attack into your systems, your environment, and they come in and tell you in terms of what are your weaknesses, how you'll have to go ahead and fix those weaknesses, etc., etc. So you get a real-time picture of the security posture of your particular organization. Instead of looking through policies, controls, etc., you get the real side, right? The real world picture of how secure you are, right? And it also, from an organization standpoint, it also helps you build some sort of a muscle memory, right? So if something goes wrong, what I have to do, that has already been tested using the offensive security testing. So you got that muscle memory. So you can immediately, detect if something is going wrong. If you can immediately contain it, you can take steps to recover it, right? And that's what resilience is, that you have to very quickly detect it, you'll have to very quickly contain it, and you'll have to very quickly come back again and do your business because that's what is making money for you. Right, so offensive security is that piece of the puzzle that Hexa defense model is the Hexa defense model that Ampcus Cyber has built. On top of it, we have got a security operations center, right, which operates from India. We've got a security operations center which operates in the US. There is one in the UAE, right, which is where we have got people sitting across monitoring infrastructures, right, of a bank, of a financial institute, of a payment processor, of a critical infrastructure, etc., etc. And they do it real time, right? So if there is anything going wrong in your infrastructure, they are the ones who would get it identified, and then they'll reach out to you, help you with whatever actions that you'll have to take to fix it, so that you just be safe and continue doing business, right? So these are all services vertical that we had built initially, and then we later identified that there is a need in the market to have products, right? Because not everything is just advisory. You want to give something to the customer which they can go ahead and implement also. And which is where we had come up with something called as Comply X, which is a product arm of Ampcus Cyber. And the only job of Comply X is to build products which can help the organization in implementing all of these service verticals that I spoke about, right? So it's an integration layer on top of the services layer that we have built. And then I've already spoken about the CISO Intelligence Council and our Ampcus Cyber education piece, which is the piece which helps you with all the intelligence and upliftment of your resources, your human skill set that you have got, right? So that's the entire ecosystem, if you want to put it that way, of Ampcus Cyber that we are trying to build, of services, products, and community, right? And all of these three would come together and kind of give enterprises the only solution that they can have, the only solution that they will have to look at when they talk about cybersecurity.
So, there's cyber warfare that's happening, there's geopolitical tensions that are happening, seeing the scenario these days. So, is India also vulnerable? And, how would you keep the organization prepared for the future in this case?
Before we talk about whether India is vulnerable, we'll have to understand what makes India a vulnerable country for that matter, right? So all of us have been using UPI, been using for a very long time.
Yes.
Billions of transactions every month. All of us have Aadhaar card. Massive services across the population of our scale are being delivered using the Aadhaar ID.
Everything is more or less digital now, so is what you want, right?
100 plus crores of internet connection. Almost everybody has a SIM card that has internet connection. Almost everybody has a smartphone, right? So the digital transformation that India has made as a country is just commendable, right? You look at the globe, you would not find any other country which has, made digital transformation at such scale and at such speed. Now, the problem with that is that also makes you a high value target.
Indeed.
Right? Because there's a lot of digital data flowing in and around the entire infrastructure, right? So it makes you a high value target because there's just so much of things available for attackers to look into, right? So that makes India one of the prime targets, right? And if you would ask me, I would say from a country standpoint, cybersecurity has to be the prime risk that we should be talking about today, right? With India AI mission, there is a lot of push from the government also to, have frameworks, regulations across cybersecurity, right? So India is a prime target, but like I told you in the previous question as well, or that we are doing some things correctly, right? There is investment which is being fed into the market from a cybersecurity standpoint. Regulators are on their toes, right? You pick any regulator from any industry vertical, they would have some or the other cybersecurity guidelines where they would expect organizations to implement controls, right? Having saying all of that, all of this boils down to whether or not you're going ahead and actually implementing it and implementing it correctly. And that is where companies like Ampcus Cyber would come in, and they can give you the real picture of what is expected from these regulators, what you'll have to do, what are you doing, and whether you are doing it correctly. If you're not doing it correctly, we can help you do it correctly so that you are secured, right? So that's how the entire journey from an organization standpoint needs to shape up, right? From a cyber warfare standpoint, the Indo-Pak escalation that happened last year, right? India was under attack for I think almost 400 or 500 times within a week. Like, it's a massive conflict. So you're having a conflict with a nation at one side, which is the border, and then there's another conflict that is happening within your cyber ecosystem. Right? Until unless the critical infrastructure is ready to tackle that, we may end up in the wrong situation, right? So that's how the government also is pushing a lot of cyber security, all of these critical infrastructure as well, so that they can come in and be resilient against all of these potential attacks.
You worked closely with AI security and governance, and with AI coming into the picture now, the cybersecurity landscape is changing very drastically. So अभी एक तो cyber security ही समझने में लोगों को time लग रहा है, awareness में, and to even accept that, to work on it. And there is AI now that's come, which is a double layer of what the security is now needed. So what is it that you would like to tell the organization when it comes to AI security, in terms of the way the cybersecurity landscape is changing after the entrance of AI?
Yeah, so I mean, from a cybersecurity standpoint, artificial intelligence or AI has been the most it's gonna be the most talked about change that has ever happened in the cybersecurity space.
That's what I wanted to understand from you. What are the changes now that need to look when it comes with AI as a cybersecurity now?
Now, with AI, what happens is, from an attacker's standpoint, let's say if you are an attacker, right, who want to launch some sort of an attack on an organization, AI is the most powerful weapon that you have got.
Indeed.
Right? Instead of you doing it manually, you can now have AI do everything, right from identifying who to target, what to target, how to target, and then take it to the next course of action as well, right? So it's the most powerful weapon that attackers have got. Similarly, defenders like us, right, companies like us, it's the most powerful weapon that we have also got to defend against.
Exactly.
So instead of having 10 people looking at a massive amount of log, I can now have artificial intelligence systems look at logs, right? A lot of organizations that are building or integrating AI into their security operations center, into their governance, risk and compliance practices, into their offensive security practices, right? As an service provider, we have also gone ahead and taken up that approach, right? So what we have done is we have gone ahead and built some agentic capabilities, right? Agentic AI capabilities in our services through the launch of the ComplyX products that I spoke about, right? So massive amount of investment that we are also making to make sure that there is AI enablement that needs to happen in how we are delivering services, whether it is through products or whether it is how we are helping our human consultants, right, so that they can do better, right? So what we are trying to look at from an AI standpoint is that AI can help us move from reactive security to proactive security, right? So rather than waiting for something happen, we can have it continuously monitored. So instead of point in time, we can go continuous. And then instead of just having human, we can now have human plus AI. So that's the idea. And I think it's just, AI is just two sides of the same coin from a cybersecurity standpoint.
Sure. So Nikhil, if you talk about the Ampcus Cyber, what are the solutions now or new products that you're coming up with to tackle the future cybersecurity risks that the industries could face? If you could just tell us about those.
So what we have done is we have launched a dedicated product arm under Ampcus Cyber called ComplyX, and ComplyX is essentially responsible for delivering a suite of products. At this particular point in time, we've got 3 products and which cater to 3 different service verticals that we have. One is called the Grace, which is essentially a compliance platform that has got certain agentic AI capabilities, right? So instead of just being a normal dashboard, the platform has the capability to reason, it has the capability to act, and it has a capability to decide on what to act, right? So it's got inbuilt AI capabilities, right? So instead of waiting for an auditor to come and collect evidence and tell you whether or not you are compliant, non-compliant, what all you have to do is shoot a scan, and the agent is going to crawl through your entire network. It will identify what all controls you have implemented, and it will immediately tell you whether you're compliant, non-compliant, and it will also tell you what you have to do to fix those, right? So instead of doing it in 7 days, auditor in your premises on your head asking for evidences, you can just get that information in what, half an hour or 40 minutes, right? So that's one platform that we have built. The another platform which is essentially addressing the most common blind spot in the cybersecurity, the third party risks that I spoke about. We have AI enabled platform called Wizard, which tracks your vendor's security posture. It tracks your vendor's financial health. It tracks your vendor's ESG score on a real-time basis, right? So you don't have to send them any questionnaire. You don't have to ask them whether they are compliant, non-compliant, whether what controls they have implemented. It's the tool that automatically monitors them continuously, right? It has got automated red teaming capabilities. So if you want to, tomorrow wake up and want to test one of your vendors in terms of how secure their external infrastructure is, you can just launch a scan and immediately get a report on how secure they are, and then accordingly ask them to take corrective actions. The other product, and which is one of the most favorite product that I have personally, is the mirror, right? And if we call it mirror because it shows you who you really are, right? It's an offensive security testing platform that we have built. So you can think of it like some 20 attackers trying to attack your environment together, right? Or even more than 20. And it's all done through artificial intelligence. So there is no human involvement at all. All you have to do is pick the target that you want to test, and you will have close to 20, 30 agents probe your network. They would test it, they would attack it, and then they would also immediately give you a report in terms of whether or not you have some weaknesses in your infrastructure, and you can then go ahead and fix it, retest it immediately. So you don't have to call any other security partner, you don't have to look for a company. All you have to do is get the platform and test it any number of times whenever you want it, and you would immediately have the report.
That's quite cool and nice. Sounds interesting. Okay, so for viewers, for leaders, for decision makers who are actually listening to this podcast, and who are, on their way to make a cyber security strategy, what would be your suggestions to close this podcast? As we want your suggestions from, your point of view.
So I've been in the space from a very long time, and I had started as one of the compliance consultant, right? And that phase, that is the domain which has changed massively in last 2-3 years, right? So my advice to all the leaders is to stop looking at compliance as one-time activity. It has to be a continuous engagement, right? You'll have to look at compliance as a continuous process. Whether it has to be done through people or whether it has to be done through a platform like, let's say, Grace, it's up to you to decide. But it has to move from point in time to a continuous assessment, right? Because technology is moving fast, right? You read about AI today and you read about AI tomorrow. There's massive change in how things are developed, right?
Yeah.
Right. And for you to, as an organization, for you to cope up with that change, you can't cope up with it through a point in time assessment which happens once in a quarter, once in 6 months, once in a year. It has to be continuous. The moment there is a change, it has to be reflected in your compliance, whether or not you are compliant to it or not compliant. So that's one advice that I would really want to give to all the leaders who are listening to this particular podcast. The another is there is a race which is happening in all the organization is to embrace AI. And I'm completely on the side of going ahead and embracing AI. It's completely fair call. It's the time to go ahead and embrace AI. But as an organization, you'll have to look at governing AI also before it starts governing you. Right? So there are a lot of organizations which had gone ahead and accepted that AI risk is one of their top risk at this particular point in time. But then on the other hand, they do not even have an AI security policy, which essentially does not make any sense, right? So you will have to have detailed governance frameworks built, implemented in your organization so that you can embrace AI securely. The other thing is, because I have been in the services space from a very long time, the other advice that I want to give to all of these leaders is to invest a lot in the right set of people. So invest in your people, invest in the right skill set, right? There is the saying that the cybersecurity skill set is quite negligible in the market, right? There is not enough talent available in the market. So for you to fix that problem, you will have to take the initiative and invest into your people, right? You can buy the best SIEMs, you can buy the best tech, you can buy the best EDRs, best XDRs, and all these platforms. But if your team is not trained, if your team does not have the right skill set, all of these
There's no point.
technologies are going to just fall flat on their faces, right? So it has to be tech plus people plus artificial intelligence. That is the way for the organizations to move forward, and address all the attacks that are probably coming in future with regards to AI or traditional infrastructure, or any regulatory or compliance requirements for that matter.
Thanks, Nikhil. Thank you so much for sharing all the insights with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shruti, for having me.
Okay, so this conversation makes one thing very clear. Cybersecurity is no longer just about compliance, it's about building long term resilience and trust in an increasingly digital world. To our listeners, we hope this episode gave you valuable insights into how organizations can better prepare for today's and tomorrow's cyber challenges. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next episode. This is your host, Shruti Sharma, signing off.